Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to talk about why individualism makes people poor. But before we get started, let's go ahead and read this article. City of San Francisco says it's illegal to live in a box, and this was actually from 2016, so kind of about 10 years back, right? And if you take a look at this is actually a pretty cool box, not gonna lie. Right? You got a place to sleep, you got a little desk to work out of with your little Mac laptop, and then yeah, that's the family, I guess, renting out the little box in San Francisco. Right? So take a look at that. Yeah, not a bad box for living in dystopian San Francisco. But let's go ahead and read this right here. Illustrator Peter Berkowitz is avoiding San Francisco's high rent by paying only $400 to live in a box in a friend's living room. So let's go ahead and read the story. I'll have ChatGPT read out loud.
Last month, the story of a 25-year-old man who's living inside a plywood box parked in his friend's living room became the latest installment in San Francisco's crazy housing market. In a city where the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is currently $3,590, Peter Berkowitz's tale of paying only $400 a month in rent and squeezing into some 32 square feet of space became the stuff of legend. It fits all my needs where I have a private, soundproof place where I can keep my belongings, Berkowitz said in an interview with SF Gate. I'm saving thousands of dollars a year. It's a solution that works for me. I don't want to spend so much money on rent. After media outlets across the country covered the story and the London Guardian ran an editorial by Berkowitz, he began hearing from people who wanted to live in similar humble, inexpensive accommodations. Berkowitz announced in a story on Hoodline this week that he would begin selling custom pods. Those plans were quickly stopped by the San Francisco's chief housing inspector, Rosemary Bosque, who told Hoodline that pods are illegal and a violation of housing, building, and fire safety codes.
Okay, so why am I reading this? Well, I don't know if you ever heard the saying that the dysfunction in this country starts in California and then it spreads to other the rest of the states. And I kind of find it funny that, back in 2016 everybody thought like, oh, super high rent was a problem just in San Francisco, and now everybody's feeling it, right? Like there's all these, TikTok compilations of people saying the rent is unfair, and again, it's real, right? Because probably you work hard and half of your paycheck goes to rent, right? And so scroll down right here, rent prices increasing, can't afford rent, going homeless. And I'm going to tell you something that I don't think a lot of people have really talked about why so many people are struggling. And this is probably going to be a little bit controversial too. But the thing that people seem to value, which is individualism, you ever hear that? Like, oh, I love going to college because, I get to be me and an individual. It will actually make you poor. I don't mean to laugh, but I honestly think it's the truth. And the reason why I say that is because societies that have succeeded, uh, I think there is always a component of pooling resources among families and groups, right? And this is how kind of like just banks and insurance companies work. They have their wealth because they have a way of pulling huge amounts of resources together, right? And what happens with your average person, again, I'm just talking about your average person, is their mentality is that I'm just for myself, right? Oh, I'm just living for me. Oh, I don't need anybody else in life. And I think if you look at the behavior of the richest people on the planet and even the richest companies on the planets, they on the not why am I saying planets? Planet, they don't think like that. They don't think like that at all. And so I think the reason why, super in like individualism is to push on the general population is because when you're just an individual by yourself, you're easy to control. This is why whenever you get promoted in maybe let's say a retail store, let's say you become a general manager, and they make you move to a totally random city to open a new store, you always feel like you know like you ever notice that those people always feel like they got like a stick up their butt because the system wants you to feel that way because they want to make sure that once you reach that six-figure salary and above, that the people who control the actual money, who make seven, eight figures or above, want to make sure to make you feel like you're disposable. And what better way to make you feel disposable than you being an individual who doesn't have any local ties to the community where you're at? Right. And this reminds me of a saying that I heard from a gentleman that I knew back in the day. His name was Bob, and he was in his 80s, and he worked $12 an hour, and he was rich. He was like, "Why are you?" I was like, "Bob, why are you working a $12 an hour job?" And we're both doing like retail marketing. I'm going to be a little bit vague about that, what exactly was, but he was like, why do you do that? It's like, well, if the moment that I just completely start working is the moment that I'm dead. So I respected that, right? And he said one of the most mind-blowing things that I still have not forgotten today, that really affected my mentality when it comes to low-wage work or just like um, how companies operate in general. And he said, "Hey, they'll work you to death and they'll get rid of you as soon as you're useless to them." And I was like, "Bro, that's so deep. That's like this ultimate red pill from the person that you least expected it." And I just had my mind blown. Now, so back to my point. Why is it that a lot of people are struggling and poor is because they're ultra individualistic. And so you think of cities like Los Angeles and New York and the dysfunction from those cities and the dysfunctional attitudes. Well, those dysfunctional attitudes can be now found everywhere in the country, just kind of like how unaffordable housing, which kind of started in certain places like California and New York, has now spread to all over the country. And then people don't understand, like, why is it I'm poor? Is because you are way too individualistic. Now, I'm not saying we got to live in a what's it called? Group-minded society, right? I can't even think of the word now, but like a, I want to say communist. Like we don't have to live in a communist society or collectivist society. That's the word I was thinking of, collectivist society. But I think we need to live in a world that appreciates our individualism within a group context. And the problem that most people have is that they don't think about the group context. Right? They don't think about the group context. And that's essentially what makes them poor because it's all about me, and I'm not going to be considerate about the needs of others. Okay. And the people who control this planet actually want that because it's much easier to control people who are not group oriented. It really is. I mean, think about like the Hollywood strikes. Like, think about how much the unions crippled Hollywood. It's because when people are in a collective, you can't really control them. It's much harder to control them, right? And it's the same thing true with where how wealth is controlled, right? Because the most important industries in not only in this country but in the rest of the world as well are in family oriented groups and businesses, right? I mean, if I type in ChatGPT, and actually just give me a moment here, let me open up ChatGPT. Okay, and let me ask a question. What industries do the Rockefellers, I'll just say, are the Rockefellers, again, family, right, heavily involved in? Oh, it's thinking. Or is it because my internet's out? Huh, it's interesting. Okay, let's see what's going on. Okay, there we go. There we go. Oil and energy, banking and finance, real estate, philanthropy and nonprofits, agriculture and food systems, arts and culture, technology and innovation, right? And I'm going to play this too.
The Rockefeller family, one of the most prominent and wealthiest families in the United States, has historically been involved in a variety of industries, most notably hash note 1, oil and energy. Standard Oil. The Rockefellers' wealth originated from John D. Rockefeller's founding of Standard Oil in 1870. It became one of the largest and most powerful oil companies in the world before being broken up into smaller companies, e.g., ExxonMobil, Chevron, due to antitrust legislation. Legacy involvement. Though no longer directly controlling major oil companies, the family's influence in energy remains significant through investments and foundations. 2. Banking and finance. The Rockefellers have long-standing ties to banking and finance, including associations with Chase Manhattan Bank, now part of J.P. Morgan Chase. It was significantly influenced by the Rockefellers in its development. Private investments and venture capital, managed through family offices and investment entities. 3. Real estate. The family has extensive real estate holdings, including Rockefeller Center, a landmark in New York City, other properties across the U.S. and internationally. 4. Philanthropy and nonprofits. The Rockefellers have been major players in philanthropic efforts, with significant contributions to education, founding institutions like the University of Chicago and Rockefeller University. Health, founding the Rockefeller Foundation, which funds medical research and public health initiatives. Environment, supporting environmental conservation efforts through organizations like the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. 5. Agriculture and food systems. Through the Rockefeller Foundation and related initiatives, the family has supported agricultural advancements, including the Green Revolution, aimed at increasing global food production. 6. Arts and culture. Contributions to institutions like the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, in New York, with significant involvement in art collection and cultural patronage. 7. Technology and innovation. Investments in emerging technologies through venture capital and partnerships. While their direct influence in certain industries may have waned over the decades, the Rockefellers maintain a legacy of diversification, strategic investments, and philanthropic influence globally.
Now, look at all the industries that they've involved in as a family unit, and think of the last time you've actually done anything to that degree with your family, right? When was the last time with your family you got together? And hey, maybe you might be the exception or what seems to be the exception because when was the last time you got together with the people that you knew or your family and say, "Hey, let's do this together," right? Because if you're able to successfully do that, it's almost unlikely that you're going to be poor because you have a collective um, effort and a pool of resources to achieve your goals. And it's much easier to do that even though you're not necessarily the best it is at what you do, right? So this is why we have to think at a little bit at the collective level and not just at the individualistic level. And I almost guarantee that the type of people that I see here, whether it's through their own, let's say, I want to say, I don't know if personality is the right word, but they lead very individualistic lives, and that's why a lot of them are struggling, right? And it's not their fault. It's just the way that the society is for most people. And this is why, like, again, I'm not like, oh, pro collectivist, but it's like you kind of have to think a little bit about the group and taking care of the group's members, which most people refuse to do. Okay. And I say this as a person who gets rejected all the time. Like all the time. I say, hey, you want to do this with me together? And I know because the other person is way too selfish to think about my needs, is not going to take up my offer. But I'm always thinking about taking care of other people. So, again, I know that eventually I will win and I will you know, achieve my goals, even though most people will reject my offer for a collective goal, right? So something is very interesting, and who knows? Maybe in like 5 to 10 years, I'll work with some of you, and we'll rule the plan together. It's gonna be like the series Pinky and the Brain, where Pinky's like, "Hey, Brain, what are we gonna do tonight? Try to take over the world, Pinky, and then we might do it like the Rockefellers. We might." Well, I can almost 99.99% guarantee that, um, I'm probably not gonna worry about homelessness, and again, I'm not making fun of anybody because there is always a part of me that's thinking about taking care of the group collective as an individual. It's not about just me, and my own selfish desires, which is where a lot of people, unfortunately, that's where their mindset is. And this used to be just Los Angeles and like a New York City thing, but I bet you a lot of these videos where people are struggling right now, it's not just New York City and Los Angeles. Although, right here it says New York, well, right? Or NYC. So, people don't understand that $2,000 for a one-bedroom apartment is a joke. I'm 19 and moved to Atlanta, right? Mm, yeah. Anyways, yeah, so again, things that used to be considered insane, right? City of San Francisco says it's legal to live in a box. Now people are going to want in a few years, or maybe it's already here in Atlanta. $400 for a box. I wonder if people would want that, or if people are actually still willing to rent rooms for $400 like I do, but you back in the used to do back in the day. Okay, so well, that's it for this video, everybody. Again, this is my pro collectivist rant. I'm just kidding. No, it's not. I'm actually not a collectivist. I'm very 90% individualist with a little 10%. Think about the village. Think about the group. Think about the children. Think about what you can do as a collective and while bringing your efforts as an individual, kind of like the Avengers, right? You bring your own talents, you pull them together, and then you got the nice package there. All right, well, that's it. And, I don't really plan to click on any of these videos because it's just going to be a little bit too depressing for me. And lead a very comfortable life, at least for now. I'm probably going to eat my words in like 1 or 2 years. Like, hey, I remember when I talked about those other people going homeless and I was like super comfortable. And then like 2 years, I'll be making like TikToks. Well, you won't believe this. I'm going insane because, I made fun of people, or it made look like I was making fun of people when I shouldn't have, but I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm a little too empathetic. All right. Well, that's it for today. Yeah. So, have a great night. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say. Um, this is Korean Atlanta mentorship, not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Okay. Have a good night.